What's good, everybody? I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect, and welcome back to the channel. Now, it's obviously still too early to do a mock that really means anything this far out, but we're about to move into the exhibitions and scrimmages in college here soon, and the preseason board is at the end of the month, so I had to put this together, and I also just like looking at things through a team lens, whether I put out a mock or not. Now, there's a lot of players I like that aren't included, and I'm still sorting out some of those rankings, especially between the freshmen. Not that it really matters in October, but if there's someone that you think is missing, that could be the reason why. And I also always do account for at least some level of fit, so don't take this as a board or a definitive ranking either. But yeah, be sure to leave a like on the video, and let's get into the number one pick. The Washington Wizards are on the clock at number 1, and they pick Duke's Cooper Flagg. As I said on that early board, I'm fairly confident Coop will be the number 1 guy all year, and there might even end up a gap between him and whoever shows themselves to be number 2. Now, we'll see if I still feel that way in a couple months or maybe even a couple weeks, but for DC, getting a wing or forward who has been as dominant defensively as he has, with all the tools as a scorer and the type of feel for the game that he has, is a true win. Now, whether that means he's a primary and the potential best player on one of the best teams in the league is obviously to be determined, and we'll hopefully see pieces of that this year, but a cornerstone of his caliber combined with the 26th draft and what they already have in Alex Sarr and Bilal Coulibaly and whatnot could make them one of the most compelling young teams in the league here soon. Now, number 2, the Nets take Rutgers freshman Dylan Harper. Harper is going to enter the year as the best guard in the class for me, and at this point the clear second best prospect as a big lefty who can handle it, create shots, and has the potential to be a plus defender. Now, there are a few questions for him to answer as a shooter and finisher and whatnot, but I really like this pick for the Nets and think he's going to have a big season. They've got basically a clean slate at this point, so good start with Harper if they did end up missing out on Flagg at number 1. Utah takes Harper's teammate Ace Bailey at number 3. He's a 6'9" wing / forward with supreme shot making skills and explosive athleticism that could also help make him a difference maker on defense. He's got a lot to prove as a decision maker, as a driver, and just in playing complementary basketball, but if he puts it together, he could be a star at the next level and the type of guy I think would intrigue the Jazz in their current state just slightly more than some of the other options who also look pretty good in their own right. At 4, the Detroit Pistons take VJ Edgecombe, a 6'5" guard / wing out of Baylor. He's a dynamic athlete with potential to impact the game on both ends of the floor. He showcased those abilities playing with the Bahamas national team this summer and will look to carry that production over to the Big 12. He'll need to improve as a creator and ball handler among other things, but I see a clear contributor with the way that he plays the game. The Spurs take Nolan Traore with this pick from the Atlanta Hawks, and despite a slower start to the season, he's quickly gotten back on track and shown his upside as a playmaker that's made him such an appealing prospect. He's looking more comfortable by the game and has been as confident as ever as a pull-up shooter. And here he lands in San Antonio, which might be every prospect's dream in these next several years, getting to play alongside Wemby. We'll see how Traore continues to progress, but I'd expect him to be one of the first names called down the line. Duke big man Kaman Malawach goes to Chicago with the 6th pick. He's someone I've talked myself into more over the last month, just revisiting things, and I think he just has too many tools as a 7-footer who can protect the rim, finish plays, and potentially stretch the floor in the future, and he also moves pretty well for his size. As I've said before, there's a lot that he'll need to get up to speed in terms of technique and I think feel-wise, but to me he has as much upside as anyone that's not already in most top 5s or that consensus group, and I think Chicago could use him as a building block as they hopefully head into more of a full rebuild. The Blazers pick up UNC's Drake Powell at 7. He's an intriguing freshman wing at 6'6". He's got tremendous upside as a defender, and though some of the offense is more of a work in progress, I also think that there's a number of things to like on that end. Now, where the shot is at will dictate a lot of his playing time and how high he gets picked, but I like what he brings, and I think he's an interesting passer too. Portland's got heavy investments in the front and backcourt, and I think that means they'll be looking wing unless something changes drastically, and Powell could be a good option even though he's got a fairly wide range of outcomes entering the year. Toronto takes Illinois guard Kasparas Jakučionis at 8. He's a 6'5 freshman from Lithuania with an intriguing skill set as a playmaker and shot maker, and I think he's got a chance to lead this Illinois team from the jump. The shooting efficiency and how he handles the athleticism in college will be watched, but I think he could be as good as any true international prospect has been in the college game since Lauri Markkanen, so that makes him a worthy pick here for the time being. The Hornets take UConn's Liam McNeely at number 9. He's going to have a ton of appeal in this draft as a star role player on the wing. He's a knockdown shooter, he's a good decision maker, and a heady team defender. And if he can prove to belong one-on-one defensively and build as a secondary scorer, he's going to get looks as high as this, and I think he could be a solid fit with this group as a big shooter who connects the dots and just kind of knows how to play. Kon Knueppel is the pick for San Antonio at 10. He's got a ton to like as a knockdown shooter at about 6'6". He can score it in a couple ways, he can make a play, and though there will be a microscope on his athleticism and defensive abilities one-on-one, I also like what he brings to the table. He's impressed everyone from coaches, players, and media members entering the year, and if that holds this year at Duke, I think he could be a great addition to this Spurs core as a connective piece next to, of course, Wemby, but also Steph Castle, Nolan Traore, and Devin Vassell in this scenario. OKC takes Hugo Gonzalez at 11. He's one of the more interesting prospects in this class to me. He's a 6'7 wing with a great motor, impressive defensive activity, and growing creation abilities. Now the shot is a real work in progress. He's not the most polished and will likely not play many meaningful minutes in the ACB this year for Real Madrid, which does concern me a little bit, but I think he'll be able to sell teams for what he has shown to this point, and hopefully he'll pick up a lot just being around that level of competition, and OKC could be willing to take a chance on someone like him if they choose to actually use any of these picks. Sacramento takes BYU freshman Jaeger Dimon at 12. I've been impressed by his abilities as a big guard who can really pass it and has flashes as a shot maker and defensive playmaker. He is still pretty slim and will need to prove the shot and what roles he can succeed at in the NBA, but man, he has these moments that are as impressive as nearly anyone in the class, and I think he'd bring an element to Sacramento that they don't really have and could eventually pay off in the long run. The Clippers pick Ratio Farm home guard Ben Seraph with the 13th pick. He's really been cooking to start the season and has looked like one of the most impressive guards in the entire class. He's a crafty lefty with good size who also happens to make some plays on the defensive end, and if the shot is serviceable, which is still very much in question, he'll have a chance to land in the lottery. And if LA does get this pick, they'll be looking to find somebody like Seraph with a lot of promise in this post-Kawhi era coming soon. And with the last pick in the lottery, the Pelicans take Illinois wing Will Riley. Riley is another talented freshman for the Illini and an intriguing dribble pass shoot prospect overall. I still question how well he adjusts physically and how he defends early on, but I think he's got a ton of upside, and though this Pelicans team has a lot going on already and they're probably going to need to turn one or both of Ingram and McCollum into a center at some point, Riley could eventually add another positive around Zion. Now moving out of the lottery, OKC adds South Carolina sophomore Colin Murray-Boyles. CMB's productivity as an inside scorer, his feel for the game, and defensive versatility have made him a popular prospect entering the year. I'm a little more skeptical of his NBA future if he doesn't shoot it or isn't a true hub as a playmaker, because then he kind of becomes a 6'6 center, but he's someone I think is a good player just overall and could have a ton of success with this OKC group and keep them rolling for years to come. Orlando takes Arkansas guard Boogie Fland at 16. Now it seems like I'm a little bit higher on Boogie heading into the year than others. He is small and I could very easily see Cal holding him back in some ways, but his ability off the bounce is almost second to none. He's super quick, he can shoot it, he can play off the ball, he's grown as a playmaker, and actually has been pretty good defensively despite his size. If the opportunity is there, I think he has lottery upside, and a spot like Orlando could be one where he maximizes his abilities. Trey Johnson goes to Atlanta. He's easily one of the most dynamic shot makers in this class. He's also a solid passer and has good size as a combo guard. Now, there's a ton of questions surrounding his ability to get to and finish at the rim and what that kind of means for him role-wise, but he's got a ton of upside. I think this is more of his floor in terms of draft position, and for the Hawks in this spot, it just makes sense to bet on his talent. Jaleel Bethea is the pick for Indiana at 18. He's a dynamic shooter and scorer who will look to show growth as a playmaker and defender this year at Miami. He's an electric enough shot maker and athlete that it could very easily land him much higher than this, but at his size it's always harder to get there if some of that other stuff isn't more apparent. Regardless, I like his game quite a bit, and the talent is too good to pass up at this point, even for an Indiana team that has quite a few guys. Golden State picks Dink Pate at 19. He's a big guard at 6'7" with great flashes as a creator and solid defense. He was super inefficient as a 17-year-old with the Ignite last year and will need to show improvement as a shooter and in the roles that he can play with Mexico City to avoid falling stock-wise. And because of some of those concerns, you'll find him even lower than this on people's boards and mocks, but I still like his talent, and especially in a spot like Golden State that unfortunately won't have Steph and Draymond forever, so Pate could be an interesting addition. Houston is the landing spot for Australian big man Rocco Zikarsky. I'll have a little bit more on this in the preview as we get a few more games in, but he's had a pretty rough start to the year and is playing limited and somewhat meaningless minutes in these first few contests. I still like his potential as a defensive anchor big who has good touch at the bucket and is very productive on a per minute basis. He's just looked like more of a project to this point, but again, we'll see where he goes over the course of the year as he's still very young and he could very well still be a lottery pick. The Utah Jazz are back up and they take Asa Newell. He's a 6'10 freshman big at Georgia who plays with a lot of energy. He covers ground defensively and can finish plays at the bucket and in transition. We'll see where the shot goes and just how much 5 he can play this year, but I like the idea of him for a lot of teams and especially to throw into this mix for Utah. Memphis picks Noah Asingé at 22, and when you think about the fact that he's just 17 years old and already contributing in a major way for Ohm while also making the adjustment as more of a wing than he's played in the past, it's hard not to be impressed. He's been versatile defensively, he's been a solid playmaker and shot it fairly well, all things considered. Now he is still young and has room to grow in a lot of places, but I like what he brings, and it could be that mix of size and defense Memphis could still use in that rotation. Utah has another pick here and they take Ian Jackson at 23. He's another freshman at UNC, really talented scoring guard who can defend and make a play. The shot will be key for him, and I'm not 100% sure where he's at his best offensively, and that's why I'm just a little lower than like lottery. But again, he's talented and someone that has a good chance of going in the first round, even playing next to RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau. Syracuse's Donnie Freeman stays in New York and goes to Brooklyn at 24. He's a 6'10 freshman forward with a lot of intrigue and potential as a floor spacer and scorer who can defend in a few spots, and he should be a staple in one-and-done convos. Now, I'm really curious to see how he looks this year and how he fits into this Syracuse team, but he's someone I see a lot of teams being interested in if he hits on some of those same areas that he has in the past. OKC picks Hunter Salas at 25. He's coming off of a breakout year as a transfer at Wake Forest, and if he proves what he did real and continues to make progress physically and as a passer, I don't see why he wouldn't be a top 40 guy and somebody that at least gets into first round conversations. Obviously OKC probably doesn't have the room for everything that he brings, but whoever likely ends up trading for this one just might. Xavier's Dalen Swain goes to Dallas at 26. I think he has a chance to have a legitimate breakout as a sophomore. He's a 6'7 wing who makes his presence felt defensively. He's got a lot of intrigue as a secondary playmaker and off-ball scorer, and if the shot is there and some of those flashes that he showed last year offensively become more consistent, I'd expect him to be in legitimate NBA conversations, and a team like Dallas could be a really nice landing spot for him. The Magic pick Alabama freshman Darion Reed with this one. He's in that group of freshmen I'm not 100% sure what to do with that y'all will see a few more of in this mock, but I love his defensive potential as a combo forward. He's a great athlete, he's active on the glass, he's a nice team playmaker, and if he can further adjust to that wing spot and as a shooter, he'll be difficult to leave out. Now, I know he's been banged up at least at times this offseason, and this Bama team is absolutely loaded, so he might be a 2-year guy, but he's another one that will definitely be in NBA combos whenever it happens for him. Brooklyn has back-to-back picks and they take Alex Tui with the first. He's a 6'7" wing out of Australia who has been an early standout in the NBL, building on what he showed last year, but looking more spry, shooting the ball at a great clip, and generally looking more comfortable with the ball in his hands. He could very well be the best prospect in that league and someone that could be a solid role player for a team like this, or really anybody in the 20s. And then at 29, they take Arizona freshman Carter Bryant. He's another one that could be a 2-year guy, but his skill set as a wing or forward who can score it in a couple ways and is versatile defensively could be enticing. I'm not sure he'll get the nod over some of the vets that they have on this team, and they're looking to make a deep tournament run, but he certainly has the talent to get into the first round, and Brooklyn is just looking to get whoever they can at this point. And finishing off this first round, the Celtics pick Isaiah Evans out of Duke. Evans is someone I'm almost positive will maximize his own stock as a returner. I mean, when you look at this roster, there's a case for like 8, maybe 9 guys with the potential to get drafted, which is ridiculous, but he's got enough talent on the wing as a scorer and playmaker to be included here, and I can see him standing out if he can hang physically and embraces that off-ball role. And for Boston's side of things, I wouldn't mind seeing him take a bit of an upside play with one of these picks in the next couple years if they are available. Now getting into the second round, we'll just kind of briefly go through things here. Alex Karaban is the pick for Washington at 31. I think his draft case is pretty self-explanatory at this point, and he'll be in contention throughout the 20s and 30s as a wing shooter with great feel, and depending on what happens with UConn this year, he could be the most decorated modern college basketball player ever. Jameer Watkins is the pick for Brooklyn at 32. I'm not sure you can take a 24-year-old much higher than this, but I really like what he can do as a tough-nosed defensive wing who can do a number of things offensively and should only gain more suitors if he improves as a shooter. Mackenzie Mbako goes to Minnesota at 33. If he builds on the defensive improvement that he made over the year and is a bit more consistent as a shooter, he'll surely be coveted by some teams as a combo forward who can shoot it and could fit in a lot of spots like this one. Cam Jones goes to Detroit at 34. Should be one of the best upperclassmen, and if he takes the reins as a distributor, as it sounds like he has been, he's going to have a massive season, potentially be an All-American. JT Toppin is one of the more intriguing sophomores to me. He heads to Portland as a versatile defensive forward who can score it at the rim and has at least made progress as a shooter. Spurs take another swing at a creator here in Caleb Foster, and I'm anticipating he's going to have a huge year, probably a little bit higher on him than most, and hopefully he's more healthy than he was as a freshman. KJ Lewis goes to Sacramento. He's a tough defender on the wing, could be in for a breakout year with more offensive expansion. Josan Sanon is the pick for the Mavs. He's another one of those freshmen I'm kind of on the fence about, but I think he's going to get busy at Arizona State, and if there's more in the supporting parts of his game, he'll stick. Derek Queen goes to Charlotte here. Now, I would love to be higher on him. I'll talk about this a little bit more soon. I just have a few too many questions about him defensively at 6'9", but the playmaking is pretty special. I think he's going to be great offensively, and he should be a ton of fun to watch at Maryland this year. St. Joe's Rasheer Fleming goes to San Antonio at 40. He's an interesting combo forward at 6'9" who will still be just 20 on draft day, and if the shot is more consistent, if he can find more hit spots offensively, it's going to have a lot of interest for the defensive versatility, the motor, and the skill set, and I'd like to see him in San Antonio. And then we've got Jalen Lowe to Memphis, Nick Clifford to Sac, Xavier Lee to LA, and we'll stop it right there. The rest of the mock is fairly irrelevant once we start to get deeper into the second round, but yeah, take a look at the rest of it and a recap of everything else. I'll have more in-depth thoughts on all of these players' games, where I think they can improve, what things I'm interested in seeing, and slightly more definitive rankings on that preseason preview in about 2.5 weeks. So definitely stay tuned for all of that. And if you're not following me on Twitter, be sure to do that so you don't miss out on stuff that happens daily and with the scrimmages and exhibitions coming up in the college game. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below of your favorite prospect or someone you hope your team ends up with next June. As always, I'm Keandre. This is HoopIntellect. Until next time, I'm out.